Hello, hi, and welcome to this episode of the Mandy Mayer podcast. As per usual, you know what this podcast is about. This podcast is about you achieving all your health and fat loss goals as you work through creating a healthier lifestyle by creating healthier habits for yourself. This is the podcast where you get excited about living a healthier lifestyle, about creating a healthier lifestyle. This is the podcast where you get excited. I help you get excited about setting and achieving those goals of yours. This is the podcast where I help you realize that you are 100% capable of doing difficult things and that it's not only elite athletes that can lose and maintain weight, but it's you, me, everyone else there that has normal full-time jobs, everyone else out there that is struggling. I'm here to help you realize that you can indeed do this thing called health and fat loss. Like, yes, you heard me correct. You can absolutely do this. If at any point you want to rate or review this podcast, please feel free to do so. That is if you are listening on one of the major streaming platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple, wherever it is. If you're on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. Don't give it a thumbs up if you don't want to. Either way, your choice. But like I said, it definitely does help get the message out there. And by doing that, we can help loads and loads more people. Listen there, people. Today, I want to chat about why you are potentially struggling to adhere to your calorie goals, okay? Now, let's say, for example, you are not tracking calories. That doesn't mean that this episode isn't for you. When I say when you're struggling to adhere to your calorie goals, cool. If you are tracking calories, then yes, when you're struggling to adhere to your calorie goals. If you're not tracking calories, all that means is if you are struggling to adhere to your nutritional plan, or if you are still over consuming food, okay? So if you are struggling with any of that, let's chat about why that is potentially happening so that you can understand. Like I said, we always need to try and identify why something is happening so that you can understand why it is happening, where it is stemming from, so that you can actually work on the root cause of, and then also make calculated choices to move forward. Now, if we look at a couple of reasons, just general reasons as to why people struggle with adhering to calories. Number one, it could be that you are in the first place really over restricting your calorie consumption throughout the day. Because oftentimes when you are over restricting your calorie consumption throughout the day, it makes it impossible to adhere to long term. Then what might happen is you might point the finger at yourself and blame yourself for being ill-disciplined and blame yourself for not being motivated enough. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, you eating a lettuce leaf every single day, which is impossible to adhere to. So if that is the case, then rather look at increasing your calories to make it more adherable. So don't be scared to eat more food, sister. Don't be scared, right? You don't need to be living off a lettuce leaf every single day. Eat more food. And then number two, another big reason why you or a lot of people out there tend to struggle to adhere to calorie goals or struggle to, adhere to less consumption of food is basically because there's a lack of protein within the plan, a lack of protein and fiber for that matter. So oftentimes if there is not enough protein or not enough fiber within your plan, you might then feel hungry a lot more throughout the day. And if you're feeling hungry a lot more throughout the day, what's going to happen? You're going to want to eat more, okay? And the moment you want to eat more, that's oftentimes where you act upon that and you do eat more. And that means you then struggle to adhere to your calories, right? So again, you want to have a look at your intake of protein and fiber. This doesn't mean that you need to be overly pedantic about it and hit the protein target spot on and hit your fiber target spot on. But it's always good to have an understanding of where you are currently at with that especially if you are struggling with adherence. So if you are definitely struggling with adherence to your calorie goals, have a look at your protein intake and have a look at your fiber intake, okay? You want to try and get your protein intake to up to around 30% of your macronutrient split. But again, I would say anything between 20% to 30%. Even if you go over 30%, that's 100% fine, right? If you go over it slightly or push up closer to 40%. But if you are currently on 15% of your total daily calories that are coming from protein, then I would definitely say have a look at trying to increase it to get you to around 20%. Then once you're at 20%, try and work it up a little bit to 25%, 26%, until you get to around 30%. Because oftentimes that increase of protein can be the thing that really helps with your satiety. And the moment you feel fuller for longer, that's the moment you adhere to your calories even more. With your fiber goals, you want to be looking at, for females, around 25% grams of fiber per day, and for males around 38 grams of fiber per day. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot until you start tracking your fiber, which can be done in any of your food tracking or calorie tracking apps, and you'll see that it can actually be quite an ask to get to those grams of fiber. Again, if you go over those grams, then that's also 100% fine, but it is something that you want to work towards. And what you will find as you start increasing your fiber, number one, it is really going to help keep you fuller for longer. Now, number three, what could be taking place if you are struggling to adhere to your calories is it could very well be that maybe you are not, necessarily restricting your calories. Maybe, and this could slightly stem from number two, where there's a lack of protein and a lack of fiber. What it could be doing, number three, is you could be having more highly palatable foods within your plan, okay? So let's just use takeaways as an example. Maybe your calories are coming from something that is more processed, more highly palatable. So that means you're going to get less bang for your calorie buck, meaning you're not going to have a lot of volume with the meals that you are eating throughout the day. And again, if you're not having a lot of volume with the meals that you're eating throughout the day, those foods that you are eating throughout the day, the highly palatable foods or the foods that are more processed, they're not necessarily going to keep you full for a long period of time because, like I said, the volume is just not a lot, okay? And that is often why people also struggle to adhere to calories, because so many people out there online are saying you can eat whatever you want as long as you're within a calorie deficit. Great, fucking Bob. That's great. Great. But how are you going to stick to that calorie deficit if you are munching on chocolates or burgers the entire day? Because your calorie goals are going to be reached within a meal and a half. And then for the rest of the day, you're left with no calories. And that's often where you are going to eat more because you are still hungry. And that's going to lead to an overconsumption of calories, right? Now, the fourth reason that a lot of people tend to struggle to adhere to their calories is going to obviously be the weekends. A lot of the times people just let go on the weekends and you'll adhere to your calories on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you'll be like, cool, diet starts on Monday. And immediately that then causes a total shit show in the adherence of your calories over a long period of time, right? So that's definitely something you want to have a look at. And I don't necessarily feel like I need to go into detail with regards to navigating the weekends because I've done multiple episodes on my podcast with regards to how to navigate the weekends, right? So again, those are just a number, I want to say just 4 small reasons why you could potentially be struggling with adhering to calories, right? So again, a lot of it stems, all of that actually stems from a nutritional perspective. So have a look at your nutritional choices. Ask yourself if you're restricting things, if you are restricting your calories in general, maybe look at increasing your calories because you are in this for the long run, right? This isn't short term. These are long-term changes that you are making, and you want the results that you get. You also want those results to be long-term, right? Then number 2, have a look at your protein and your fiber intake. If it is quite low, look at upping that, right? Because that's going to lead to number 3, because number 3, if you are having more protein and fiber with your meals, that means you might then potentially be reducing your highly palatable meals or your overly processed meals because oftentimes they're not going to come high in protein or high in fiber, right? So again, that's where you would be looking at adding more volume to your meals. Now you're going to be eating a lot more throughout the day on the same amount of calories. Boom, that's winner, winner, chicken dinner. Now, I have saved this last point for last. No shit, Sherlock. And it is non-nutritional. So the reason why a lot of people might struggle to adhere to calories, from a non-nutritional perspective could very well be that food is one of the few enjoyments that they have in their current daily sort of life. And I know that sounds harsh, but hear me out, Jan. I know I have discussed it lightly or briefly in some of the other episodes of this podcast. For me, in the past, when I was very overweight, I would go to work. I hated the job that I was doing. I wasn't necessarily in a relationship that I loved being in, right? I didn't necessarily have a massive group of friends that were actual friends that, weren't necessarily just drinking buddies for that matter. So for me, there wasn't a huge form of enjoyment in other areas, if that makes sense. So for me, the enjoyment was sitting in a pub drinking and then going to have takeaways after that. That was my form of enjoyment. I didn't have any hobbies. There was nothing else that I actually enjoyed. There was nothing else that excited me. There wasn't me coming home being like, oh, I'm so excited for X, Y, and Z. And that is why I believe that I could have been turning to alcohol and food, because I found enjoyment in that. And it was one of my very few enjoyments. And it could very well be the case with a lot of people, maybe you out there, where you may be not necessarily happy within your job. Maybe you not happy in your personal life. Maybe there's certain things not making you, happy. And maybe, just maybe, food is a form of happiness for you. You find comfort in it, right? You come home after a stressful, horrible day at work. What is the one thing that makes you happy? Food. And I know a lot of people might be listening to this being like, oh, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. And again, for me, this is me actually speaking from personal experience. Then the moment I started making changes and I started giving myself or making little hobbies of walking after work, and then walking that turned into running, and then, going to sign up to a gym after several months or whatever, that was something that I really started looking forward to, just going out there and seeing if I could walk a little bit further in the evenings or walk a little bit faster. I started hanging out with people from the gym or people from the fitness boot camp that I attended. And it was just a game changer, because there was something for me to look forward to. There was, the friendships that I was creating at that point were based on, I want to say, the same sort of baseline. It was health and fitness. We had the same goals, or more or less the same goals. There were things to chat about. It was enjoyable. It was exciting to have hobbies, right? And it really changed the way as to how I was adhering to my calories, because now, like I said, I had other things that I was enjoying. There was things that I was looking forward to. And the more that I was enjoying these things, the more that I was looking forward to it, I really realized I don't need to be turning to alcohol or food to find enjoyment. And again, it was a big shift for me. And I'm hoping by sharing that little bit of a message in the last point, I'm hoping just that maybe someone out there can resonate or relate to it and actually be like, you know what, that is the situation that I am potentially in. Because then you can start looking for things of enjoyment to add to your plan, whether it is, meeting up with friends, whether it is getting a hobby, for example. Maybe it is going to a book club. Maybe it is going for a walk in the evenings after work. Maybe it is, finding a new relationship. Maybe it's getting out of a relationship that you don't enjoy being in. Maybe it's finding a new job. Maybe it's about finding new friends. Who fucking knows what it's about, right? But again, assess your levels of happiness, assess your levels of enjoyment, and ask yourself, is that potentially the thing that is leading you to overconsume calories at the end of the day? If it is, and again, I know it's so difficult to add things of enjoyment, but through trial and error, you can potentially find things that you enjoy. You can potentially find hobbies. And again, you've got to push yourself out of those comfort zones to maybe join a walking group, maybe join a fitness club, whatever it is. And I can tell you now, you will see a major difference. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you like I usually do. Keep smiling, keep laughing, and keep being kind to one another. Much love, your friend who just shared her personal story with you, Mandy.